Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Bowlers Union podcast. Keith and I are here together as usual, and today's episode is all about getting released and being rejected. So, we'll probably have the tissues out by the end of this episode, Keith, I reckon. But before we get into it, just want to say, make sure you are subscribed to the Bowlers Union. That way, when we release a new episode, you'll get a notification, and it'll be top of your list of podcasts. So you'll get it straight away, nice and promptly. Please also like, follow, and subscribe, and leave a review. That really helps us in terms of our kind of ratings, which we get quite hung up on in the background. But anyway, enough of that. Let's get on with it then. Getting released and being rejected. Keith, does this make you feel sad before we start?
A little bit. I think you've probably been rejected a lot more than me, though.
I make up for it on nights out. You know what I mean? I wish.
A lot of red wine. Yeah, it's not a nice feeling, is it? When you're getting moved on from a club, or if you've been trialing and you've not got a contract or something, it's quite hard to take. And I don't think people talk about it enough. And hopefully we can give some insights to what it feels like, but show maybe the positive sides of it, and give some advice.
Yeah, totally. I think, unfortunately, sport, and particularly cricket, it seems that there is quite a lot of rejection, and there's quite a lot of failure in general, all kind of wrapped up in the game. And actually, how you handle it and deal with it is really important. So obviously, today we're going to be focusing on mainly kind of getting released or trialing and not getting the outcomes you want. But like even getting left out of a team is rejection, isn't it? And that's pretty tough to take. But yeah, let's talk about some of your personal stories then, because obviously you've had an unusual route into cricket for a modern player, in that you went through the football route, and obviously at some point that finished for you and you came back to cricket. So what was that experience like?
Pretty brutal. See, I got released from Blackburn when I was like 20, 21. And it knocks the wind out of you, and you kind of left thinking, like, what do I do? You end up looking back a little bit I did anyway, of like certain players that were still at Blackburn and how they're still playing, what they're doing, and you kind of get sidetracked. And I felt like I needed to just crack on, maybe take a bit of time off from football, but just wait for the right opportunity. But then one thing I realized very quickly is, as within football, I needed to trial pretty quickly while teams had released players and looking at maybe replacing those players that they've let go. So I went on trial pre-season, and this is something I learned very quickly, that your past is still with you. So what the last coach you had basically will pass on their notes or their thoughts on what you were like. I trialled at Gretna Green. Remember, they went pretty good for a few years, didn't they, Gretna Green?
Oh, I don't know, mate. That's Scottish football, right?
Oh, no, they I think they had like a owner who pumped loads of money into them and got them up the leagues and stuff. I was on trial there, and the assistant manager said to me, "Look, you've got 3-day trial. This is your second day. I've been told 2 different things about you from 2 different people." So I'm thinking, I know one of them's the reserve team manager, and I partly got this trial because he knew my academy director. He said, one person says to me that you're a waste of time and you're a liability.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The other says, if I give you a chance, you prove people wrong. And I just thought to myself, well, he's not going to always know. Not every person's always going to know my academy director. So those words of is a waste of time and a liability is what I'm going to be getting wherever I go if they speak to my reserve team managers. And that was really tough to take. And once again, feeling rejected, even though I've got another opportunity somewhere else, because that's their first thoughts on me is, he's not up to it. Found that pretty tough to take. I ended up playing for a little bit, and then things turned pretty quickly. And I moved on to, I stopped playing football and had an opportunity of trialling at Warwickshire. But before Warwickshire came along, I through my dad saying, look, you're going back into cricket. I know you're only playing club cricket. It's worth contacting Lancs and letting them know because you played for them when you were younger for so many years. So I did that. And the first conversation I had, the response I got was, don't think you can walk straight back into Lancs, which I didn't even think I'd ever be playing first class cricket again, never mind trialing or anything else. So there was a bit of rejection there, even though I was just letting them know because my dad told me to. And then I got an opportunity at Warwickshire, which I feel like led me to just kind of look at my past of where I felt I could have improved in football and try and improve the way I practiced, the way I trained, and just kind of work harder.
Yeah. That's yeah, I feel like that. Yeah, given I know you obviously well, there's a couple of things that stand out. Is one, I do think that in a football environment, you probably, if you were given another go, you would have proved people wrong. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not basing this off your warm up football either. I'm not. This is purely you as a character. And with the Lancs thing, I guess it's a lot of this, and we're going to kind of probably delve into it in a deeper way. Is like that was like one person's opinion, wasn't it? In terms of you made contact with a specific person at Lancs, and they basically, that was their opinion, was a bit prickly, and I don't know. It's not a general perception of you from a lot of people, which is more what matters. Because opinions are, I'm going to be rude here, but opinions are like arseholes, aren't they? Everyone's got one. And unfortunately, some people aren't gonna dig you or whatever. And actually, it doesn't make you not a good bowler or anything like that, or a bad character or whatever people are saying. It's just kind of, you have to sort of roll with it a bit.
Yeah.
So in terms of the Lancs thing, how did you feel after that? Was that just like a, you know what, whatever? I'll get down
Obviously,
to Warwickshire.
part of that conversation ended with, we'll have someone watch you. And that was it, which they did for 5 club games when I was playing for my local cricket club. But nothing came about, which I wasn't expecting anything anyway. But then when the Warwickshire trial came, things changed pretty quickly. I thought, I've got nothing to lose. I think that helped me because I failed in football. I think it helped me. I've got nothing to lose, just go for it. So I didn't really come into cricket thinking much or adding that much pressure because it was just a one-off, give it a go. If anything happens, it happens. If not, whatever. And then very quickly, I'd done quite well in the seconds at Warwickshire. And then Lancs then got in touch and wanted me to come and trial there. So all of a sudden, I think a few other people found out that I'd reached out to them, and it was almost not backpedaling, but kind of try, like, can you come down and let's have a look at you? So my eyes were fully focused on Warwickshire and earning a contract there.
So now I guess we're going to have to like fast forward, aren't we? Because this was, you and I played with each other then.
Yeah.
So what was your experience of leaving Warwickshire and moving to Hampshire? 2018 this was.
A lot tougher than football, I felt, because I played for so long. What was it, 10 years? When it got to that ninth year, still knowing I've got a year left, felt like I contributed quite well over the years. When it then came to the appraisals in my 10th season, I didn't see it coming. I think I got sideswiped a bit, like, and being told, you know, we're looking to other places, other people to replace you because we don't think you offer X, Y, Z. That was quite tough to take because with the reasons that they gave as to why, which I think was quite a little bit false. I think it was a way of making me feel not worthy of much if something was to happen down the line. But I felt it was just wrong. Like saying, you know, I didn't offer much with the youngsters and this, which I clearly did from my perspective anyway. I felt I was worth more than that, than how I got spoken to and what the outcome was. And it happened. My first appraisal, the second appraisal was kind of hit home. Like, look, we are looking elsewhere. I don't think you understand how serious this is. We're not looking at signing you. We're looking to move on. So I did want to go in a bit of a slump, and I think I did briefly. But then from that second appraisal, I thought to myself, all I'm doing now is everything within my power to get them to offer me a new contract. That's all I wanted to do, because I've been told I'm going, fine, we're going to stick with that. But if I can make you offer me a contract and I can turn it down, as horrible as that may sound, I'm doing it. I'm doing it because you think I'm worthless. If I can make you think, actually, no, he isn't worthless, and offer me something, I'd like to just show you the middle finger and walk away. That's how it went. But as the season went closer towards the end of the season, things then were starting to look as though we might offer him a year, and basically they hadn't signed the players that they wanted. I think Jordan Clark was one of them, and he moved to Surrey. All of a sudden now the club I'm being told how valuable I am, which just doesn't make me feel good, because I know that's a lie from what you were telling me. So, you can start to feel a little bit angry, but wanting to still perform and do well for the club, but also get that extra offer of a contract.
Yeah. And so I've been thinking this as we've been going on. In terms of in those meetings, how did you conduct yourself, and did you keep your cool? And in terms of it around the dressing room and stuff after, did you keep your cool?
Well, you'll be able to tell me around the dressing room, but within the meetings that were had, one thing that made me fully aware that there could be a backtrack down the line is I had a conversation and just said, look, and I was told, look, I don't think you understand how serious this is. My response was, well, actually, I'm looking forward to seeing where I'll be playing next year. I want to show confidence that I'm not what you're saying, and I'm confident I have the ability to go elsewhere. Also being told that my best years were behind me, which I'd like to think I've proved people wrong with that since leaving. And when I said that I'm looking forward to seeing where I'll be playing next year, the response was, well, you might still get offered something here. And I just thought, right, I don't know if that's happened, but I feel like I've called your bluff a little bit. You're kind of looking to see what you can get, but if not, then there might be something from at the end of this season. But yeah, I felt quite rejected and just thought, no. I thought I handled myself well within the meetings, didn't kick off or anything, kept it as professional as I could. But I don't know, you tell me what I was like in the changing rooms from your point of view.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's worth noting at this point, and again, we'll probably discuss my experiences in a minute, but we were obviously in regular, well, we drive in every day together and stuff like that. So we'd be able to discuss it together.
Yeah.
No, I thought you were good. I thought you handled yourself well, and I think there's a couple of reasons that's important. Is because ultimately, you might not get the news you want and stuff like that, but your attitude, whatever's going on in your head, is yours, and you've got to kind of insulate yourself from the rest of the world, almost, haven't you? And by then conducting yourself well, performed well on the pitch. I think that year, obviously, we were at Warwickshire. We got promotion back into Div 1, didn't we?
Yeah.
Bowled really well, and then moving forward, that your trajectory is the right way.
Yeah.
So even though you've got the rejection, you're kind of just whatever. You've got that rejection, but your path is still upward, whether that's with Warwickshire or not.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this is fair to say for both of us at that point. What was difficult was we did love Warwickshire. We loved being part of it. Our lives were there, family and all that kind of thing. And it's a fantastic club, and I know we both still keep an eye on them and want them to do well. But you handled it really well. This is a good one. I want to ask: do you ever watch NFL Hard Knocks?
Yes, I used to. I haven't watched it in a while though.
How when they do the camp and they chop people off?
Yeah.
I think it is incredible how those young athletes
they handle it.
Take it. Well, they just go into that meeting, the head coach or whatever, or whoever their general manager is, and they're like, they get straight to the point, don't they? I'm really sorry. I'm afraid we're not going to put you on the roster or whatever for the full season. I want to thank you for your time. And they literally just thanks, sir, shake hands,
Yeah.
and go.
Yes.
I'm like, for the most part, they handled it like absolute champions.
Yeah. And I think that's so much easier to do from a club's point of view, and I think from a player. It's horrible to hear as a player, but at least you know you're not being dragged on. You're not being messed around. And that's where I feel I look back and I think they made a decision, then they've gone against it. I feel like I'm being messed around. I don't feel comfortable with that. And that was obviously my story myself. Can you give us some insight as to what your rejection was like through your career?
Oh, I've got plenty, mate. Yeah,
I'm not on about with women because we'd be here all day if you go that route. Just
yeah, I know. I didn't have the taff back then, though. You know, so maybe that would have changed my things. No. Yeah, so interesting. So I'm going to come at this from more of a young player point of view.
Yeah.
So I felt my first dose of rejection at around that academy age. I can't remember exactly when, but I was at Hampshire, grew up there, so I did all my junior cricket there. And I don't know if I've mentioned this on the podcast or not, so I apologise if I already have. But I was in a net. My dad took me to a net one evening at the Rose Bowl, as it was known then, and just hitting balls, brilliant, with a coach who I loved, and I think he's still at Hampshire, Tony Middleton. Is he still there?
Yeah, he's
right.
Doing a little bit behind the
Yeah,
scenes.
so we're doing a good session, throwing loads of balls, and I'd have been 16 or 17, and he literally just came down sort of halfway through the net. I was like, I don't think you're going to be a pro. He was like, we're more or less when we're not going to put you on our academy or anything like that. He said a professional batter would have to hit like 90 out of those 100 balls like perfectly, and this is batting as well. We're talking about here. We're not there.
Wow.
And I remember just getting back in the car with my dad, and you know what? I don't think I cried or anything like that, but I think I was just really shocked, like stunned. I had no idea that was what the net was about or anything like that. But long story short, anyway, I didn't get on the Hampshire Academy, which kind of they went for a different player, and I wasn't particularly developed physically then. I was a bit of a late bloomer. So yeah, I mean that was my first dose. I think at that age, it was young enough that whilst it wasn't great news, you have time on your side, don't you? So if you love the game, I wasn't going to all of a sudden stop playing cricket. So in that sense, it wasn't a huge setback. And you know what? Ultimately, again, it was one or two people's opinion, which in the grand scheme of things doesn't matter. Your opinion of yourself, and hopefully you got hopefully you got a little network around you. Whoever's listening to this, like family, maybe a coach or two who you really jive with, that it's their opinions that matter, not kind of external opinions. But yeah, anyway, so that was my first dose of rejection.
Just before you go on to the next dose of rejection, so interesting. I've spoken to Mr. Middleton about that.
Have you?
Yeah, and he had said it was between you and another player, another bowler, I think, of who they were to put on the academy, and they went for the other lad, but obviously between the two, there's only one that's gone and made it professional, and that was you. So it's quite interesting how if you're young, you think you've been written off. It's so important to not always believe what you're being told straight away. You've got to keep persistent and trying and look for other opportunities elsewhere, because you might just need one opportunity somewhere else, and that can change everything for you.
Mate, 100%. And so I've made a note of this. And by the way, I actually love Tony Middleton. I used to love my sessions with him. He's a cool coach. He's got like a quiet intensity. So when you're training with him, you're training, but he's not like vocal. You know what I mean? He's not over the top.
Yeah,
just loved it. I think bowling. This is particularly for bowlers, and this is the Bowlers Union, so it's perfect. You know what? Don't let anyone tell you you're not going to play at the highest level until you're like, I'm talking over 20s. I really believe that. I really believe that because Hampshire's error there, basically, they just went for someone who was more physically developed, and they potentially character, maybe skill wasn't so much of a thing. They just saw a big guy and they thought, oh, this bloke can hurl it down there. And that's not how it works. You've got to let, in my opinion, I appreciate you have to coach people, so they need an influx of people to coach, but you can't make those decisions until everyone's grown.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Different with batting, because I feel like, let's be honest, it's less physical. That's not a thing. But until everyone's kind of developed bowling wise, you shouldn't really be writing people off. If you've got a kid who looks small but is technically good, decent airspeed, maybe moves it a bit, don't just pick a big kid. Don't just pick a big goober thinking, oh yeah, this is great. Because actually, once that kid gets exposed to good training, high level of cricket, that kind of stuff, all of a sudden you might have a superstar.
Well, also, I wanted to ask you, obviously that journey home must have been a long journey home for you. How did your dad take it as being the person that takes you to and from cricket? How did he help? Did he help you with that, or did he just stay quiet? What was his thoughts?
So I've tried to talk to Dad about this sort of stuff because he loves cricket, and decent club player, but beyond that, not more than that. I think he found it exceptionally difficult, really hard, because he could see the effort I was putting in and stuff.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I don't really know. I think he said he found it difficult. I think it was more probably because he would have felt a little bit out of control and would have been frustrated by it.
Yeah.
But he was so supportive. I think he's always tried to nudge me in the right direction. So, like, to be fair, it was his idea that I went to one of the uni centres of excellence at the time.
Yeah.
He was like, I think that would be a great route, because obviously I wasn't going to kind of get games in really with Hampshire at the time.
Yeah.
So he was like, you know what, I think that might be a really good route, because clearly a degree is something you might want. Whether or not a value of a degree is as much these days is the be all end all, I don't know. But obviously it meant I got to play that cricket. Before that, actually, and to be fair, credit to him, he thought that maybe he advised, and we talked about it, was potentially moving club to try and play with a better standard of player who perhaps did things a bit better. Do you know what I mean? So I was all of a sudden, it was a bit more professional. And to be honest, that worked, because it was in a club game there that I got seen by a guy called Toby Radford, who at the time ran the Middlesex Academy, and got me there.
Right.
So he advised. He's been brilliant. He's been brilliant. But I think equally, yeah, we sometimes forget the parents, don't we? Who they go through it. Like,
that's a part to play as well, because if they start having, let's say a parent starts having conversations with a friend, but the child or the young player hears, and it's not in a positive way, it's kind of a doubt or kind of worrying way, that player, that child, whoever it is, will not feel confident that they're good enough as well. So I think it's really important that parents play their part in this.
100%, mate. I'll tell you what I think my dad did really well. All right, sorry, this is not an episode just about my dad. He put his time and effort into me, not talking about the Hampshire coaches and doing that kind of stuff. And I think I would have thought, and in fact, you know what I know he is? If my dad was to go and see, let's say my dad was to go and meet you for a coffee at the Aegeus Bowl, and he bumped into a few people at the ground, I think they would like him. It wouldn't be like, oh, here's a dad that was a pain in the arse.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. But yeah, that was my young experience. And this is, again, in reality, is there's people listening to us because they enjoy it and they get value, but there'll be people who maybe didn't get into a county under 17 team, county under 19 team. And it's, when you're like, here's an interesting anecdote as well. So I did, and I think you did this kind of thing as well, but there was a West of England team. And at the time I didn't get into it one year, and I thought it was the end of the world. And the only two people that played professional cricket from that team are James Hildreth and myself. He did play all the time, but that was it. So it really doesn't matter. It
Yeah.
really is so irrelevant, honestly.
Yeah.
In fact, I find it laughable. People will be like, "Oh yeah, I played a bit of Bunbury's." You know, what I mean, like, I could not give less. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. No, I get you. I've got a friend whose son is playing age group stuff now, and I'm trying to say to him, look, it's like, don't worry if he doesn't get in the setup now. If he's 17, 18 and it's looking bleak, he's never had an opportunity, then you can start to kind of question. But that stuff is irrelevant. Everyone develops differently. Everyone kicks on different times, kind of grows and develops at different times. You don't worry about don't sweat the small stuff, Chris.
Oh, love the way you drop that in. And you know what? Absolutely. Equally, maybe this is a controversial take here, but until you get to that older age, the coaches you're getting aren't necessarily particularly good, because unlike football, the money in coaching is at the top end or private coaching. It's not in kind of county age group stuff.
Yeah.
Some may be luckier than others. For example, like Leicestershire, to be fair, the coaching there's coaching there's mint at the moment. It's stacked full of like knowledgeable players and things, but not every county's like that. Like a lot of cases, it'd be really well-meaning and hard-working, not volunteers, but you know where I'm coming from here without being a bit too harsh.
Yeah.
So, Joe Blogg's opinion of you for Sussex under 13s is not that important. We did an interview with Mason Crane, actually, didn't we? That's not been aired yet. He talked about that same kind of thing.
Yeah.
So someone at Sussex probably got fired over that one. But anyway, I'll get on to the next load of rejection.
Yeah.
So my big proper one was getting released at Essex for me. So this would have been 2011. I remember, you know when you have like appraisals and stuff. So Essex used to always do their like hiring and firing. They do it at the Colchester Festival, which would be like August. I want to say late July, early August. And I remember, when you get like your first appraisal. So we have like 3, don't we, over the year? I think I got like the maybe not grade. We may or may not sign you again. So basically, it's just kind of like, we're pushing it back. We're not going to make a decision.
Yeah.
And then anyway, got called to sit down the front at the Colchester Festival with, I think the guy was called Graham Saville. Again, lovely bloke. And he basically was like, yeah, we're not going to offer you a contract and stuff. And I reckon that was as bad as I've felt. Do you know what I mean? More than any other stuff. Because I wasn't, in my head, I wasn't that established at that point. So it was more of a real threat to my livelihood and stuff. So I remember hearing that, obviously felt bad, went home, obviously had a missus and young child. Yeah, that was 100% the hardest, because I was like, shit got real. Do you know what I mean? It was like, oh crikey. But I think family support was really good. And I sort of probably had a day of like, maybe like you said with your Warwickshire thing, had a day where I was like, I feel pretty bleak here. But again, if you conduct yourself the right way, so I managed to keep that private, so to speak, contrary to perhaps the modern advice of let everything out. I managed to keep it private, and for whatever reason, I think things turned really, really positive really quick, because that same week, I think Dave Masters, to be fair, was on all the Gloucestershire team who they were playing, about having a look at me and stuff. And it happened that I was kind of there. So it literally kept my cool, but had a day of just feeling a bit sorry for myself, and was able to come out of it really quickly. So that was that one. That was hard. I remember, feeling pretty bad. But again, luckily I could snap out of it. Then obviously together with you, the Warwickshire in 2018 one. So this was a different feeling of rejection. I think this was a bit more of a this was more confusion. I don't know if you felt like that. Like you said, you felt like you got kind of fobbed off a bit. But I've got an agent that I work with. So he was obviously on the front line of the negotiations, so to speak. But basically, I just got told, oh, we'll sign you for 1 more year, and it was like a third of my salary pay cut. I remember being like, obviously I was 33 at the time, and I remember being like, what? Surely that's like not what they're offering. And I think we joked about it before coming on air. It's like very much the definition of like a cheeky offer, like on a house or something like that. It was like, you know what, if we get Wrighty signed for this, massive pay cut, 1 year, you know what I mean? It was just like, yeah, I couldn't sign it. And then very, fortunately, things with Leicester happened, and they were really speedy with their negotiations. But quite quickly, in my case, that one was like I felt like really not wanted.
Yeah.
Not as a person and stuff like that, but like clearly as a player, they were like, not wanted. Potentially, I wouldn't even say not valued, but it was quite clear that I wasn't in their real long-term plans. I wanted to play as long as I could, as we said, love the game. So it was more of a quick, you know what, Leicestershire are showing faith in me here. They want me. I'm like, yeah, this is time to move. But yeah, I do remember feeling, I was confused by it. I was like, well, how's this situation unfolded? I've only ever tried my best, that's all anyone can do, right? Anyway. And you were going through it at the same time albeit slightly different kind of way, because you were trying to.
Well, I just remember thinking to myself, like, now you've mentioned it, I remember because we would drive together, like, oh, like they don't. There's nothing there. Like, oh, at least Wrighty's got a year, like if he wants it, kind of thing. Like God, like I'm not like they are fully moving on, but I remember it got to a point where we managed to like be on a bit more of a positive note, because at one point Leicester were looking at trying to get us both, and we were like, how good would it be if we can both go and kind of start again, but with a new team and try and really kick them on. And that helped me keep going, I think, throughout the year, because obviously Hampshire came in, and that took about a month or so to really get it. Contracts being talked about and whatever else, but at that point I was still feeling rejection because there was nothing definitely there at Warwickshire, and it was a last-ditch thing. So it was horrible. It's a horrible feeling, horrible place to be when you just don't know what's happening with your future. Especially, well, I had a little boy at that point as well, so it's you got a family. You're thinking, where am I going to go from there?
Yeah, no, totally. And I think how you handle how you handle yourself is really important. And I'm not saying to bottle it all up. Like clearly, you like again value friendship, right? You and I could chat about it on a really deep level because we really understood what was going on. So that's obviously great. We had Graham Welch at Warwickshire, who obviously is a bowling coach, who we talked about numerous times. He was obviously really good for us both. But if you don't handle it well, it can definitely, I think, spiral, because particularly in your case there, if you don't handle it well, all of a sudden performances aren't so good. Maybe Hampshire aren't so keen. You know what I mean? Hampshire aren't so keen, and all these things. And even if you don't handle yourself well, like reputational damage.
Yeah,
Which
mate. Yeah, almost the time that you've been at Warwickshire, let's say, has been forgotten about because of how you've almost left the club. Like you've got to be very careful.
Yeah, it's really difficult because I feel like not everyone is going to have, not necessarily being released, but is going to feel that rejection at some point. It could even be getting the tap on the shoulder at 10-15 for you're not playing. And you've got to be prepared to handle it well. I mean, we've obviously talked about our personal experiences there. What have we got for other people then? What does handling it well look like in your opinion? Do you know what I mean? Like,
I think there is a way of handling it well, but you don't want to handle it like you're easy to be like just giving excuses. You can't be a pushover.
Yeah. 100% agree with that.
And this is something I I've spoken to you about before, but I didn't want to make it a comfortable conversation to have if I was going to get dropped, or I wanted to make sure that I wasn't answering back if I said something, but kind of, I remember, I'll give you an example. I remember got to a stage where I was almost on the brink of getting into the first team with the Red Bull stuff. And then every week it would be, keep doing what you're doing in the seconds, keep taking wickets, keep scoring runs. And it got to a stage where I'd been doing it for quite a while. Actually, I'll go one step further. For a few years, it felt, through appraisals, being told, right, this is where we see you. For you to break into the first team, you've got to be better than outdoing Neil Carter. And then after a bit, yep, you're doing that, but now you've got to be ahead of this player, then this player, and then now we see you to get in the first team, you're competing with a Ricky Clark and a Chris Wilkes. I'm like, hang on a second, how am I going to get past these two to get in this? This is impossible. It was good because it kept me going and made me better, but you kind of feel rejected there. So then moving forward from that, when it came to selection and almost getting those teams, when I did play, I remember I played one game against Lancs and I was a bit nervous, didn't really get going. And then I got dropped back into the seconds the week after, and I was told that it wasn't good enough how I bowled, but also someone else had bowled better than me in a net. And I was fuming. So I actually said, hang on a second. I've had to kind of overcome each person that you've said each week in and out, and then score runs, take wickets, and now I'm being dropped for someone who bowled better than me in a net. And I kind of made a bit of a fuss, a bit of almost the standards there for me. One person's standards here, and they're straight in. And I just tried to make it uncomfortable, not to have those conversations with me, but to make sure you've got your ducks in a row when you're giving your reasons as to why, not just be, we're just going because of this reason and me just take it on the chin. I wanted to make it uncomfortable, but in the right way.
Yeah, like so I completely agree with everything you've said. With the, I'll add this in for people, is at the right time. So for example, if you get the tap on the shoulder at 10:15, that is not the time then to to do it. It's once the game started, it's like, coach or Cap, can I grab you for 5 minutes, isn't it? And then having that chat. But you're quite good at those chats. They're not necessarily easy ones to have.
No.
Have you got any advice on that in particular? Because how can I put it? I'm torn. I'm torn here because there is the phrase, and it's a great phrase, is don't ask questions you don't want the answer to. Which there's an element of that, isn't there? If you say something like, if you ask something like you're going to here, and you get a truth that you don't like, you're going to have to then deal with that.
That's, for me, that's fine. I'd rather hear the honest truth, and that's on me to get better at it, because I can't ask for the truth and then sulk when it's not what I want to hear. Or else, why am I asking that question? Really? Why would you say, no, I want, like, no, I want to know why. You're just not been good enough, Barks. Oh, well, that's a bit harsh. What? Like, no, you can't go that route. You've got to take it on the chin and, like, well, if I'm going to get better, this is what I've got to do. He says I've got to be work on my skills, or I've got to do X, Y, Z. Then I've got to do that if I want to play under his regime. Simple as that. Yeah, I don't think you should be looking at it as like, I don't want to hear the truth, or else, well, there's no point even sulking about it. Just accept being dropped or accept the bullcrap excuses that you'll get given.
Yeah, no, I like that. Right, I've got one for you here actually as well, which I want to add this in. So if you're in the self-help, if you're into self-help and stuff like that, Tim Ferriss's one of his books, which I recommend, I think it might be 4 Hour Work Week. He basically says something like 95% of the time getting sacked is good. And obviously not in the moment, it's not good. But when you unpeel it, quite often, it's actually potentially what you need at the time. If you know what I mean? Like for me, when Essex released me, at the time I felt awful. But actually, in the long run, 100%, it was what I needed. I felt like I was starting to become a better professional as well at that point. But when I moved to Warwickshire, I could completely reinvent myself. I felt like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I went away from being like sort of a cheeky chappy who liked playing a bit of poker and quite light-hearted. I don't necessarily think that would have been the image I had at Warwickshire. I think it would have been a bit more. I think I would have had a more serious image, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. But I would never have had the opportunity for that had I not been sacked. Do you know what I mean? So it was almost like you have to peel the layers off like an onion.
Yeah.
Or
I think getting sacked is the best thing for you, especially if you're a football manager, because you just get a massive payout.
yeah, I mean, well, I would say cricket is not. It's not like that in cricket. So yeah, it's not like that.
No,
But I mean,
I
things
think,
like your Hampshire career, that you've had a
yeah,
great Hampshire career, and that,
yeah. Do you know
you
what
know,
I would say? Like for me, myself, moving, change of environment, people are looking at you almost to kind of be, well, what's he got to offer? Like, what can he bring from where he's been at, or he's been a good performer? What's he going to be like for us? You have to, you don't have to reinvent yourself, but you kind of, you've got a past of what they've seen or what people have seen, or coaches or players or whatever, or even fans of the club you've joined, and you want to make sure they see you in that light or better. So for myself at Hampshire, I was given a little bit more responsibility as a senior player to try and help lead, and I try and do a lot of my leading with my performances. I think that did help me to where I'm at now. Just given a new role in the team, being able to be what I felt a bit more verbal and actually have a bit more of a say and talk about things more. Was at Warwickshire, we were quite an experienced team. Even though I was a senior player, I felt like a young senior player because quite a lot of the lads were quite a bit older than me.
Yeah, fair enough. No, I completely agree. We talked about again before,
Yeah,
about how, what advice we could give in the face of rejection or being released, and you mentioned about taking a small break.
totally.
What's your theory there?
I don't think, and this is specifically for cricket, is I don't think it's a good idea mentally and physically as a batter or bowler to try and jump straight back into training at the end of a season. I think you're just covering like a few cracks, mental cracks or physical cracks, of just kind of, let me just move on, get over it, kind of just almost like being in a relationship, kind of, or just find someone else because I just want to move on. You've got to actually take some time to like kind of lick your wounds a little bit, just deal with what's happened, look back and review it, but over a certain amount of time. You look like you're smirking there, Chris. What are you thinking?
Not, sorry, I've gone a bit there. I'm thinking about things. Yeah, no, right. Yeah, no, you're right. That like a little period of reflection.
Yeah, definitely.
Stuff like that, because we're appreciate we've faced some rejection and been released here, but we've also kind of been quite fortunate. There are people potentially listening to this, well, hopefully there are bowlers who are without a club right now, and it is kind of it is a period where you should probably take some stock, reflect on what needs to be done, give yourself a little bit of time, and then, I mean, if you're working within a cricket season schedule, for example, in the UK, you've got October, November, December, where you can, and I'm not saying take a huge break, but you can almost take a break from the team environment. And
Yeah.
it's like, right, you can work on yourself for those 3 months, be it skills privately, fitness, could be some mental stuff, so that when you're ready to perhaps trial again, or maybe you've got an opportunity to be with someone for the winter in January, you're kind of making the best impression you can. Or it might even be later than that, but it's kind of like, I keep coming back with this, like reinventing yourself, but basically it's working on yourself and dealing with it properly, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, if you actually look, like someone like player we play with, Andy Mead, he had years out of the game.
Yeah.
Where he was done with cricket, but then reignited that fire after about a year of travelling, or even 2 years of travelling. And now he's at Somerset. You don't always have to jump straight back in. Opportunities will come at various times. The easiest thing to do is fixate on trying to get back out there and find a new team. But I really am against it. I think time away, reflect on your season, reflect on maybe appraisals that you've had of where reasons as to why they've let you go. It could be the fact that your performances haven't been good enough. That's then more of a psychological, why is that? How do I approach the game? What am I doing in warm-ups? What am I not doing? Am I recovering well enough for me to go the next day? It could be all those small things. But if you jump straight back in like, right, I'm just going to do loads of drills and you're not really taking time to look at where you went wrong and how to improve.
Agree, mate. It's got to be deliberate. And actually, what I would say is I think this is something that we can help with. So if you're still listening at this point, drop us a DM or something like that, because we'd love to help people in this situation, just to get that little bit of direction. This probably sounds really arrogant, right? You know what I used to find staggering, right? And this was when you and I were like established pros doing really well at Warwickshire, and people would trial at Warwickshire. And I remember thinking, have they not done their research here, right? So at that point in time, we had you and me, obviously, but we had Boyd Rankin, Chris Wokes, Ricky Clark, Ollie Hannon-Dalby, Richard Jones, like a young, probably I've probably forgotten one or two more, right? Young bowlers. We had a proper squad of bowlers. And then in like March or something, you'd see kind of like Joe Bloggs having a bowl in the nets and things. And I'm thinking, why have you chosen this club to come and trial at when quite clearly there isn't the space and there would be a better option? Don't get me wrong, this is all cyclical, but again, you do have to think and have a plan. Like you say, have a minute, reflect on what you want, and then apply it in the right place. That used to be something I'd find particularly unusual, because clearly when you and I trialed at Warwickshire, for example, or had games, it was the right place. They needed a couple of bowlers.
No, I agree with you. I understand. I'm trying to think because not all like bowling coaches will talk to each other, whatever. So even if you've been on trial somewhere, the chances that a coach at the club you're now going to trial at is going to bring the old coach of where you were trialing before, they're probably not going to have those conversations. So what are you actually trialing for? You might get the odd place you trial where the bowling coach may pass you on to somewhere else, say, look, maybe not here, but you might be able to get another club. I'll speak to X person, but you've got to look at what you'd be coming into, and if you've got a better chance of playing or not. But you want to seek out more of the clubs that you're looking and going, well, that person is always playing in the first team, but they average 38 with the ball. Maybe I should be looking at, and there's no one else that seems to be coming in, so maybe I need to be trying to knock the door down there and try and get myself in at that club.
Yeah, 100%. A little bit of research, bit of quick info, all of these kind of things. Clubs, social media. Is there clubs with long-term injuries, or like you say, is there an obvious lack of depth in the second team? Trying to find the right fit.
There's one other thing I wanted to just say. You mentioned earlier before we came on about making sure the feedback you get is the right feedback, because do you want to explain it?
Yeah, so this was my experience like recently, and this is more for even younger bowlers, is if you get a bit of rejection, and let's say, for example, you don't get into Glamorgan under 15s. In my personal opinion, because I've been on the other end of this, where I've had to try and give feedback to people who don't get in these environments, and the chances are that there's been like a net kind of scenario, and that you're watching a lot of people all at once, and so the feedback can be kind of generic, but from what I can gather, it gets requested a lot. Coaches are told, make sure you can give feedback on the bowlers who perhaps don't get in, and it's more of a box ticking thing. And I remember a family, I was coaching their son, and he didn't get in to, I think it might have been Warwickshire under 14s at the time, and they got a sheet, like an email with the feedback on, and it was so generic, mate. I think I mentioned earlier, it was like more momentum into the crease, use front side more, follow through better. And I'm like, that's not that helpful. That's a bit too it's too vague, ultimately. And what bowler couldn't do those three things better? But like, you know what I mean? It's kind of I wouldn't do that. I'd seek outside advice or from people you really trust rather than the people in those trial environments. Not that they're not, what's the word? Not that they don't know what they're on about, because clearly they will, but it's very hard to give a proper opinion. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, when I hear that, I'm thinking there's one or two reasons why they've given that generic answer. Is one, either this sounds horrible, but you actually have not got much potential in what they see and they don't want to put it like that, or the things that they've pointed out, momentum into the crease, using front arm or whatever, if they can see that, why are they not able to then go, well, if this person can add this to the game, they could be a very good bowler. Sure, that's what they're there to do, is to coach. So that kind of feedback of doesn't do this, doesn't do this, doesn't do this, either you can't coach it, or you maybe not, they're not thinking that much about the player in potential, basically. And for me, I'd rather hear the actual honest truth, because if you don't hear the truth, you can get dragged along, chewed up, spat out by any sport. So just be honest and look for honest feedback. And if you're unsure about it, the feedback you've got, question it. Look for proof in the evidence of what, look for evidence of what they're saying.
That's a really good point. Ultimately, I don't think you particularly can get that honest feedback, because it's hard for someone to watch that many bowlers and be really specific, I think. So that was something that I wanted to note. Do we have any more points here of ways to help in terms of dealing with rejection? I mean, my big thing is to try and look forward. You can't change what's gone, can you?
No,
but you can look forward.
Well, I think it's really important, like you said, is you may be blowing up inside. You may be really upset. You've got to put on a front. You've got to be almost bulletproof to kind of I'm taking it on the chin. I'm going to crack on. Away from it all, you may feel a certain way and dealing with it in your own way. But when you're seen, because there were times when you're getting released and people know about it, but you still got to practice. Still leave a good impression. Still, make them think maybe we've made the wrong decision.
Love it. Do you like proving people wrong? Do you like playing with that mind frame?
I live on trying to prove people wrong. I do. I like the whole Warwickshire thing. It used to. I seen the old thing online of people saying, "Oh, yeah, rumours are it was for personal reasons he moved." Like, no. I was told I was leaving, and I wanted to do well anyway, but I wanted to prove certain people wrong, as they should not have put me in that position. So I will do everything I can to prove you wrong. So I don't know. I like doing that. It makes me feel it's almost like an extra win when you do something like that. What are you like yourself? How do you about it?
I've just asked. Yeah, it's made me think. Right, you. If I'm a head coach, I either want. This is every player in my roster, for example, although I don't know that you can do it. You either want them to try and prove you're wrong, or you want them the exact opposite end of the scale, where they literally feel like, you know what I mean? They're like God's dad all the time. It's kind of what you don't want is the passenger in the middle who's just kind of like floating along. I mean, I'm trying to mind you, maybe that is the true grinder, the true professional who's just like, I just crack on. But those two emotions at the end of the scale, I think, are really important. I feel like I like a nice bit of both. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So obviously, you've not played many games against Warwickshire as an example.
No.
But if you were to play a Red Bull game, I know deep down you will be doing everything you can to come out successful, winning the game, taking wickets or scoring a few runs here and there to kind of be like, I've still got it, but yeah, you maybe made the wrong decision.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I've not really had that because I didn't really even have it much with Essex. I remember Warwickshire played Essex in the quarterfinal of the White Ball comp, and I was pretty pumped. But that's one game, and we won, and I was a bit like, yeah, have some of that. But yeah, I haven't had it really with Warwickshire. We played a few white ball games yeah, I don't necessarily feel like I'm in that place at the minute in terms of on field, if you know what I mean. Off the field, a bit different maybe. I'm like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But not on the pitch. I don't think I've got that kind of little. I don't have the same kind of I don't know, hatred. I want to say. So my biggest show you was Warwickshire. Was basically just every game I played for Warwickshire. In 2011, I haven't just been released. I was like, I am literally going to make you lot look so stupid. That I did feel like that. But yeah, I haven't really had too many chances to directly do it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. But yeah, you've got it in you. You've definitely got it in you to kind of. I'll show you though.
Yeah, possibly. But I think that's probably about right, isn't it? We keep it just under an hour.
That is it, yeah, mate. There's nothing else really to offer from my side.
I'm just trying to think now. I mean, I hope people equally, hopefully, our personal stories are quite interesting. I don't feel like it's a big, oh, look at us, but it's more, you know what, everyone is going to face rejection. So hopefully we're a good example of people who've had long careers, but have had rejection and been released and stuff quite consistently throughout that period.
Yeah.
And it's a kind of like, you know what, if you keep your head down, keep working hard, if you keep not challenging is the wrong word, but if you keep asking the right questions and looking for honest feedback, you can really get through these difficult periods and come out the other side.
Yeah, that's the other thing I will say is, yeah, you've got to be prepared to have the tough conversations as well if you're wanting to get better and move on from where you're at. Like you said, you were saying if you don't want the honest truth, then don't ask. But I think if you want to improve, even if you have been released, you've got to have the tough conversation as to how you can improve and quit the bullshit. I just want to know what it is or what it isn't I've done to get.
I've got to share this story with you to finish because this is a good one, right? So when I was younger, right, I went to a Dennis Lilly bowling camp. And essentially he was teaching his model, which was Brett Lee's model. And we were all around this table with a big projector on. And I was there with Middlesex and a couple of young Middlesex lads. But it's when I first met a guy called Tony Palladino, or nearly first met, who I went to uni with, played with at Essex and stuff. And we were literally, so we were sat next to each other. And Dennis Lilly, he got to Tony Palladino's action, right? So Tony had a good career, right? He played for a long time, did well, all that kind of stuff. And so we were both young, and Dennis Lilly got to Palladino's action, slowed it down, and then basically kind of freeze framed it. And he was like, that is a train wreck. He was like, this is one of the worst actions I've ever seen. He was like, if you think you can bowl with that action, you're going to have to be the strongest man in the world. And then he critiques him further with a bit of like, this is what I think you could do. But again, he did well for Tony, right? He had a good career in that and enjoyed his career. But at that point, he felt awful. I'm telling you now. In fact, we were all there, just like, oh my god, it's me next. And all the lads, like, faces would go like white. So ask good questions. But I don't know what you mentioned and how it ties in. But I thought people might enjoy that story because there's always, you know what I mean? Yeah. Right. We'll wrap it up. Please share it and share it, like, follow, all of these things. And we'd love a 5-star review with a comment, actually. If you could leave a comment. We've got some good reviews so far in terms of the stars, but I'd love to get some actual feedback on there. That would be great. But yeah, we'll leave it there and see you next time. Take it easy.
Cheers, guys. Bye.